True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. And if you'd like to skip the intro or move to any specific part of the podcast, please refer to the timestamps listed in the episode description. Thank you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It is May 15th, 2025 here. The weather is fab for New York in May. It's a little rainy. It's a little humid, but we'll get through it. I don't have much to talk about. Still pregnant, still surviving, getting through. If you want to hear more, honestly, bullshit chit chat, check out our Patreon because we definitely do more chatting there. But we were just saying this is going to be a long episode probably.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Jason Corbett and Molly Martens. The big Netflix documentary just came out about them. And we're going to go into a lot of detail about some of their background and all that. So it's definitely going to be a bit of a longer episode. So we're going to just get right into it, which is rare for us.
Yeah.
But
we did have a
it's
comment.
already 7:45 here. I got to edit after this. I got to get to bed. I'm tired. My laptop battery is going to die. So we got to get a move on.
Just to kind of along those lines, I was going through our Spotify comments, and as usual, 95 or 99% of them are lovely and amazing. We did have one today from someone who was listening to our Kavina Christmas episode, and they're like, look, I just really wanted to listen, but you guys just talk too much shit. So this is your weekly reminder to please, if you don't want to listen, that's fine. To the chat, just go to the timestamp. It's at the very top of every single set of show notes. And on Spotify, and I'm pretty sure other podcast platforms, if you listen other places, literally you click the time and it will take you to where the chat stops and the crime starts. So please do that because we can't do anything else. That's all we can do. We give you the knowledge. You can go to it if you want.
If you guys have any ideas on how I can get people to realize this, because I have the disclaimer at the start of the episode. I was like, maybe I just change the disclaimer to not disclaim anything except, hey, there's timestamps, please use them.
Yeah.
Will that work? I don't know.
So in saying that was our one main message for the last few days. We did have our listener of the week. We have remembered to keep going. This listener of the week is Carrie Ann. She wrote, hello, my friends. I just listened to this episode. I just want to say when I realize it's Thursday, I feel refreshed, like taking my bra off after a long day, which a side note is the best feeling probably as a woman, one of them anyway.
Hell yeah.
She says, you all got me through some hard times. I was deployed last year and when I had my free time, I would hit the track with you all in my headphones and I would walk. It was nice to hear the chat and hear your lives. It brought me some normalcy. Thank you and just keep being. So very lovely. Thank you again. We appreciate all the nice comments, all the discussion comments. The only annoying thing about the Spotify comment section is you can't have back and forth dialogue. So we can reply once. So if you do want to chat about something, it's probably best chat about something ongoing or have a question for us. Message us on Instagram because at least we can kind of go back and forth. On Spotify, we can only reply the once. So
yeah. So thank you for the nice comments. I know we say this every episode, but we're just what do we do at this point? But the nice comments are great because there has been times where we're do we stop chatting? But then so many people are no, we love it. So thank you for encouraging us to keep going and keep chatting. Okay, so let's just get into it. Like I said, we're talking about the murder of Jason Corbett today, and there is a new Netflix documentary out about this, and the title is A Deadly American Marriage, and we're just talking about it on Patreon. I hate the names of all these documentaries. I think they're so uncreative and stupid. There's an American Murder, Deadly American Marriage, Deadly America, American Nightmare. Nightmare, murder. It's all the same words always. And I get it. Thinking of a title is hard because I have to think of titles for our episodes all the time. And that's why it's always just the murder of Jason Corbett because I'm not creative
I wonder
sometimes.
if they add American into these, I'm just thinking out loud, but I wonder if they add American into the title because the market is mainly American. So maybe they think people are more interested if it's something within their own country. I don't know. Or maybe for other countries,
funny with this one,
it seems more sensationalist. I don't know.
half of the story they're Irish and in Ireland, like, you know?
Yeah. I guess it did well, obviously getting ahead of ourselves, but I guess it did turn deadly when they moved to America. But yeah, it's I
Yeah.
just feel like it was a very half-assed headline effort. They
Even
could have used
the
many more attention-grabbing headlines.
the Moscow Dateline episode that we were just talking about, it's what, A Terrible Night on King Road or something? That's the best we've
Yeah,
got?
yeah, yeah. That terrible night on King Road. Yeah. Anyway, I
So,
guess it's very self-explanatory for that one. So,
yeah, it just feels like that they're just like, "Okay, just buzzwords."
yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna get into this. Like I said, the documentary is good and interesting. It goes over the case, but it seems like there's a lot of background info that they kind of leave out of the documentary. So we want to get into some of that. A lot of Molly's like mental health struggles weren't talked about, and I feel like that adds a lot to the story and the
a lot of
case.
background. And also, so the documentary is an hour and 40 minutes. And I was saying to Stephanie before we recorded, I feel like they did try to be quite impartial and show both sides of the story. But in an hour and 40 minutes, obviously, you have to pick and choose what you put in. So they did. I feel like they left out some key points. I know people always say that about our podcast too. They're like, why didn't you talk about this? Why didn't you
Yeah,
talk about
like you
this? So
can't
it's
get it
always
all.
easy. Yeah, you can't get it all. But I feel like what we're going to present today is some interesting additional content that wasn't in the Netflix episodes. So if you're thinking, well, I've already watched it, why would I listen? We do have other information that wasn't in there.
911, what is the emergency? My daughter's husband got in a fight with my daughter.
He choked me.
I hit him.
Is he breathing? I can't tell.
It's one of the bloodiest crime scenes I've seen in a long time.
Things were not great. There were times when I thought that I'm gonna die.
You said mom was yours.
But are they the victims or is he the victim?
In 30 years of prosecuting, I've never seen photographs like these.
What have you done?
The kids were in bed asleep when this occurred.
They had lost their father.
Did you ever see him hit her?
Molly made me lie.
What is the truth and what's not?
On the outside of the house looks like sunshines and rainbows. And on the inside,
We learned that there are secret recordings.
If I hadn't screamed that night, he would have just strangled me.
I never saw my dad ever lay hands on Molly.
my dad is a really amazing person.
I was going to save her life,
And I have no regrets.
What really happened?
Who is the victim here?
Okay, so we'll start with some background about Jason first. He was born in Ireland on February 12th, 1976, just minutes after his twin brother Wayne. Jason was the youngest child in a family of 8. His parents are Rita and John Corbett, and Wayne, his brother, said he was a loving brother and friend to all of us. Jason loved living in Limerick and playing rugby and golf. The two attended St. Kieran's National School in Galvin, and later St. Edna's Secondary School, before Jason went on to undertake a number of business management courses. In terms of employment, Jason worked his way up from the bottom in multi-packaging solutions for about 15 years in Limerick. Wayne said their life was practically idyllic. In the 1990s, Jason met Margaret Mags Fitzpatrick. Quotes from the family describe Mags as his soulmate and love of his life. So they do talk about her, his first wife, a little bit in the documentary, but they don't even really get into how they met and kind of their relationship that much either. So
yeah, I feel like they use the first wife in the documentary to kind of raise suspicions later on, which we'll get into. But yeah, they definitely kind of gloss over his early life with Margaret.
Yeah. So his sister Tracy said when he met Mags, everyone knew that was it. It was love. The couple got married at the Star of the Sea Church in County Clare in 2003. Mags owned a childcare. What the fuck is that word?
Creche. Oh, maybe that's a British word, a creche.
What does that even mean?
It's basically like, a creche here.
Like a daycare?
Well, it's not like a creche is like at our gym, for example, they have a creche. So it's kind of where you usually go and take your child for a few hours, like to the creche. Like at a hotel, sometimes they have creches. It's just
Like a
like I don't know.
kids area.
It is a daycare, but it's not something. Yeah, it says here, a creche is a childcare facility where babies and young children are cared for while their parents work, study, shop, or need to be away. In Australia, they are found at gyms, shopping centres, or leisure centres. So it's generally not somewhere where you would enroll your child and take them every single
I get
day,
it.
but
Like
it's like,
a la carte daycare.
yeah, like an occasional daycare. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming it has the same meaning in Ireland. Like a creche is where you, like your kid would usually be there for a few hours max.
Yeah. Okay, I get what you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
There are things like that here, but I don't know what the specific term is for them. I feel like they still just kind of call them like childcare, place to watch the kids. I don't know. Someone's gonna be like, "Yeah, that's what they're called here, you idiot." Sorry. So yes, she owned a creche at the time. At the time the couple purchased a home together. And they said that life was complete after their two children, Jack, who was born in 2004, and Sarah, who was born in 2006, arrived. His sister Tracy said they were just so happy and so excited with life and so enthusiastic about it as well. And they had Sarah, and I remember them saying that their family was complete. They had their little prince and princess. In November 2006, when baby Sarah was 3 months old, Mags died after she suffered an asthma attack. His sister spoke to CBS about Mags's death and said Mags woke Jason to say that she was feeling wheezy. And he sat her up and she started to take her nebulizer. And she started to progressively get worse. We found out later they called him in and told him that she had died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. So Jason was now a 30-year-old widower with a 2-year-old son and a 12-week-old daughter, which I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's like I obviously, not to get too much into detail, but I know she was breastfeeding the baby, but even then, just 12 weeks is so little for a baby to lose its mother. And then for him now to be the sole carer of these two very young children would have been, plus the grief, would have been absolutely
And plus, seems like he had a
heartbreaking.
pretty serious job, too.
Yeah.
So Jason began raising the children alone after Mags passed. In 2008, he placed an ad for an au pair to help him with the children, and Molly Martens answered this ad. So Molly was born on September 28th, 1983, making her 24 years old at the time that she answered the ad. Molly is the daughter of Sharon and Tom Martens. She has 3 brothers named Connor, Bobby, and Stuart. The family lived in Farragut in East Knoxville, Tennessee. Her mother, Sharon, was a doctor of mathematics who attended the prestigious Emory University in Georgia, and her father, Tom, was an FBI agent, and he was also a trained attorney. It doesn't seem like someone you'd want to mess with. Described as pillars of society by those who knew them, the Martens aspired to a life of prestige and affluence. Molly attended Farragut High School, and she was on the swim team there. One neighbor said she was just a normal girl. She was shy and quiet. There's nothing remarkable about her. She was very good at swimming, but she had physical health problems and she missed a lot of school because of that. Despite the neighbors saying Molly had physical health issues, some reports indicate that she was suffering from mental health issues that her family tried to keep under wraps. Molly attended a weekly youth group, and her issues were discussed among her peers. A friend said she started crying over something one day. When someone asked what was going on, her friend said she had some issues and that she didn't like to talk about it. Molly's brothers were very successful in both academics and sport, but Molly was the opposite. She worked several casual jobs after she left school. By 2004, she had a job as a receptionist at a hair salon in Knoxville. Her former boss, Monty Howard, remembered her as a good worker who got along with staff. He said, "She worked for me for about a year and a half. She answered the phones, took bookings, and greeted clients, that sort of thing. I always found her easy to deal with. There were no problems." Molly would eventually move out of her parents' home and into a condo that they also owned. By her mid-20s, she was working as a nanny and teaching children how to swim. Molly had numerous relationships over the years, including one with a man named Keith McGinn. He said, to her credit, Molly told me early on in the relationship that she is bipolar.
Before we finish up with the episode, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Skylight. I feel like a lot of parents are in the same position as me where I find it hard to keep track of everything that we have on, especially now that my kids are a little bit older. I feel like I'm the one always asking them, what's on today? Here we have uniforms. So I'm like, what uniform do you need today for school? I just find it so hard to keep track of everything. My brain feels like it's at full capacity. And that's why we absolutely love our Skylight calendar. You can say goodbye to sticky notes and calendar confusion with Skylight. The Skylight calendar is here to keep you and your family organized. This beautifully designed digital display syncs with all your existing calendars, making it effortless to track events, appointments, and reminders in one easy-to-see place. We have ours on our hall entryway tables so we can all see what's on that day. And my kids love adding things in there like someone's birthday, some fun things. It's just such a handy way for everyone to have access to everything that's going on that week.
Me and my husband work opposite work schedules. We have the calendar set up in our kitchen. So if I throw something on the calendar while I'm at work, he'll see it from home. So I love that because it's always right out in the open. It's right next to our coffee machine. So while he's making coffee, he's going to see it and he's going to see what's on our calendar for the day.
One other thing that I really love about the Skylight calendar is that you can add chores onto there, which for some reason it makes my kids really excited to actually do their chores. They're like, wow, okay, yep, I'll do that. They know what's expected of them, and it just makes running the household so much easier.
Plus, you can just sync it with your Google Calendar or any other calendars that you already have set up. So super easy. And right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/TCS. Go to skylightcal.com/TCS for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylighthtcal.com/TCS. I didn't think much about it because medications had her stabilized and everything was blissful and bright. A month or two into our relationship, she got a staph infection. The infection medication she was given overrode her bipolar medication and knocked everything out of balance, like someone flipped a light switch. Molly was the saddest person I had ever been around. She would cry in bed for hours. Seeing the person I loved suffering so much was a very trying situation. I did everything I could, but nothing seemed to help. So Molly was unable to continue her job as a nanny due to her mental health, and she stayed at home while Keith paid their rent. He said it was paid to her parents just like you would pay rent to any landlord. Molly couldn't work anymore, so it was down to me. I was supporting us both. We were paying rent to her parents. I think if she was on her own, they would have helped her more financially. But knowing that she was in a relationship, they were kind of like, you guys need to make this happen. They would have paid for anything major that came up, but for the most part, she was financially dependent on me. I paid the rent, bought groceries, paid the bills. You don't make much money working for a nonprofit. We were scraping by on my salary, which I think is kind of shit of her parents.
Yeah, I wonder, like, obviously this is just Keith's point of view, so Molly has never, I've seen publicly address what he's saying, but I wondered too if it was part of, well, like the parents trying to get her to stand on her own 2 feet. Like, I know that they're expecting Keith to do it, but maybe they're like, come on, you guys are a partnership. You should be working together. Like, maybe it was something along those lines.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if Keith wasn't there, would they be making her pay rent still?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I doubt it, but anyway.
At the beginning, the relationship was amazing. Keith said they both genuinely cared for each other, and because they were both struggling, had mutual respect and understanding. He said once her depression took over, things were stressful. Heartbreaking, actually. I never knew what mood Molly would be in. When I got home from work, I walked on eggshells much of the time, trying my best to keep things stable, but things were usually tense. We're both going down on a sinking ship, for better or worse. Mental illness has such a negative stigma, and Molly didn't want people to know the truth of the situation. I finally swallowed my pride and sought a therapist. As the relationship came under increasing strain, Keith became concerned by the plethora of drugs Molly was taking. At one point, he claimed she was taking 16 prescribed medications a day and another 10 to be used as needed. He said most of the stuff she was taking was for bipolar or manic depression. So she was taking some serious drugs. They were prescribed. It wasn't like she was doing it on her own. She was an insomniac, so she would sometimes be up all night. She was taking stuff for that. She had a tremendous amount of stuff on her plate. He said her parents were very much aware of her mental health issues. They were well aware of the many doctors, the medication she was taking. They knew about it all. They did try to help. They lived relatively close and they would come over. I don't know how much they actually helped, but they tried to. I felt that they were overwhelmed at times and frustrated about the whole thing. Keith purchased a $150 ring online because that was all he could afford and proposed to Molly. He said it was completely her idea to get engaged. She really thought being engaged would make her happy. She thought that was going to be the cure. I knew it was not, but I thought it would help for a while, and it worked for like one day. In 2007, Molly suffered a miscarriage. And months after that, she checked into a medical rehab center in Atlanta to try to deal with her mental health issues. Keith said the psych ward in Atlanta was a last ditch attempt to try to get her medications right. It was to try to get her off all the stuff that she was on and get her on the one or two things that could make her stable. It was very heart wrenching. The people that were in there, it was hard to recognize them as humans sometimes. The sounds they were making, just staring at the walls. After Molly completed 4 days of treatment, she went back to Knoxville with Keith.
I feel like 4
One night-
days does not seem
It's not
like
that
a
long.
very long. Like, obviously, I know there's probably insurance and financial things, but 4 days of treatment for someone who's clearly suffering a lot does not seem like a proper treatment program to me. I don't
Especially when
know.
the goal is to like adjust medications like
Yeah.
that, with her being on so many medications and wanting to like kind of narrow it down to a few, like just adjusting on and off and withdrawal of medications to try to figure that out. It would take longer than that. Like, I don't know if it was meant to be like outpatient then where she was still being monitored and would come back. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that long of a time. So one night out of nowhere, she told Keith that she wanted to go be a nanny in Ireland. He said it was very odd. She literally turned to me one night and said, I want to go nanny somewhere in Europe. I was like, oh, here we go. She sometimes came up with these ideas, and I was like, this is not the fix. So she was like, I want to go to Europe. And I was like, okay, Molly, whatever. He said, I went to bed. She stayed up, which was pretty normal. One morning soon after, Molly told Keith she had found a nannying position in Ireland. And he said, I was like, how did this happen so fast? She said, I'm going to go very soon. So I was quite taken aback. I was used to her not following through on things that she was planning, so I didn't think it would happen. So in the Netflix special, Molly speaks about how she joined an au pair agency, and that was how she connected with Jason because he put out an ad on there. She said that she felt for him because he had lost his wife, and she saw pictures of the two little kids and just couldn't imagine them living a life without a mom. So Molly initially told Keith that she would be gone for a week, then that turned into several weeks. And Keith has said that he heard her talking on the phone with other friends, and she would be gone for a varying amount of time, a month, 2, or 3 months. Malia arrived in Limerick in April 2008. And if you're not familiar with the area, Limerick is on the west of the country and has a population of 102,000. Lynn Shanahan, one of Jason's friends, spoke about meeting Molly for the first time. This is a quote. My first thoughts in the first sentence to my own husband were, this is not what Jason needs right now. The minute I saw her with her big bouncing curls, she was in her 20s. She had a big, bright colored coat, fur collar, cowboy boots, was dressed and makeup done like a pageant queen. As we would have said, she just seemed not the nanny type.
And if you haven't watched the documentary and you haven't looked at any photos of Molly, basically she's kind of like the all-American girl. She's blonde, she's beautiful. Like I can imagine her rocking up in the cowboy boots and
yeah, I could literally picture
like
it.
She is and was a very attractive person. Like, I also would think, oh gosh, maybe my brother who has 2 little kids doesn't need, like, I understand why.
Grieving brother.
Yeah. This is maybe not the best type of person to come into his life at this point.
Yeah. So Molly got along well quickly with Jason's children. His sister Tracy said he liked her. She seemed gentle with the kids. We started to see, a little glimpse of the old Jason coming back. That he was just, not so sad all the time. Jason and Molly soon began a romantic relationship, like just threw Keith right in the trash. I'm like, what happened? Like, Keith did so much for her, and now she's just moved on, left to Ireland. And on Valentine's Day in 2010, almost 2 years after Molly arrived in Ireland, Jason asked her to marry him. Molly said yes, and they began to plan a wedding in the U.S., which is very fast. Like, she's only even been there for 2 years, and they're already engaged.
Yeah.
The family moved to Lexington, North Carolina in April 2011. Jason got a transfer with his company to a plant in the area. His sister would later speak about how Molly changed upon her return to the US. She said, she was just very controlling. She was angry, I would say, and for someone who was about to get married, she just wasn't herself. She stayed in bed, curled up in a ball. She didn't come out and socialize with anybody. What really set alarm bells ringing for me was when one of the bridesmaids told us before the wedding that Molly had told him that she'd been friends with Mags, Jack and Sarah's mother, before she died of cancer. Mags didn't die of cancer, she died of an asthma attack. And obviously, they weren't friends. They didn't know each other.
Yeah.
Jason apparently began to wonder if he was making a mistake by marrying Molly. On the big day, later in 2011, Paul Dillon, Jason's best man, told him, "You're the most unhappiest man I've ever seen," on his wedding day. He said, I asked him to just leave her and just get on a plane and go home. And he said he can't. He made the commitment.
So when they arrived back in the US, Jason purchased a house in the Meadowlands area. It's basically kind of like a community that involves a golf course, clubhouse, pool, tennis courts. There's 40 acres of natural area. I had a look at some photos. It looks like a beautiful place to raise a family, like very safe, very, well maintained. It looks lovely. Jason paid cash for the 2,500 square foot house, and it was said to be worth at the time between $350,000 and $390,000. He gave Molly $80,000 to furnish the new house. Molly drove a BMW SUV and she took up a job as a swimming coach. So by all outward appearances, the family seemed to be living the dream. Molly had really landed on her feet. Jason seemed to be doing well financially. They had these beautiful children. It all seemed to be going well.
Mhm.
A neighbor said they were the most loved up couple you would ever see, always holding hands, always kissing and laughing. They just seemed very, very happy. So despite the outward appearances, there were some underlying problems in the marriage. Molly had become persistent about adopting Jason's 2 children, and Jason was resisting this. Molly even led neighbors to believe that she was the biological mother of the children. She told people stories about her pregnancy with Sarah, which clearly was an absolute lie. It's kind of a bit...
Yeah, it's weird.
it's not really single white female because I know it's not the same situation, but very creepy and weird. She was...
Yeah.
And I feel like, too, they do highlight this in the Netflix documentary. She was very obsessed with those children. She wanted those children to be hers. So that was causing some tension between the couple. Jason also didn't love living in the US. He was homesick and he was depressed. He told people that he wanted to return to Ireland and open up a pizza restaurant. He began to gain weight and Molly was not impressed by this. The couple were married, as you mentioned, in 2011, and by 2013, Molly had sought legal advice regarding possible custody of the kids in the case of a breakup. She also spoke with another lawyer about her parental rights in 2014. So they didn't have much of a happy marriage. Like 2011, they were married. By 2013, she was already consulting a lawyer. So things pretty quickly went south. Jason's family were becoming increasingly worried about Molly's behavior. Tracy would say that Molly began lying and described her as a fantasist. Tracy also alleged that Molly was self-harming and day drinking before driving the children around. I was reading like an anecdote or a story that Tracy spoke about how Molly drank a bunch of margaritas and then would go and pick the kids up and drive them to their activities. So not...
It's crazy that none of this was in the documentary.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm trying to be like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed watching the documentary. It was interesting, but I feel like there was so much more they could have included. I guess they just had to summarize it.
I feel like it focused a lot on like the kids too and the kids retelling of things, which was interesting. But some of this, like I didn't know much about the case before watching the documentary, and I was like, oh, okay, it was interesting. Like, I don't feel like anything like too crazy or damning was in it. But then when I was reading the notes, I was like, oh my God, like so much happened.
So since Jason's death, there have been some other documents that have been released that speak about Molly's behavior at the time. There was one instance where she was said to have put Jack's face under a running kitchen tap as punishment for splashing her with water, and he was 7 at the time. We've also learned that during their wedding, Molly screamed at one of her bridesmaids because this woman had gone to purchase McDonald's for, I guess, her son, like not Molly's son, her own son, because the child was allergic to egg whites and couldn't eat the food at the wedding. So Molly cracked it and screamed at this poor woman for trying to provide food for her child on a very long day. A few days before Jason's death in August 2015, the couple were at a party and Molly made a remark to Jason about his weight in front of multiple people at the party, and Jason ended up leaving the party without Molly. He left early. So his family believed that this was the straw that broke the camel's back in the relationship, and it kind of cemented the idea that he wanted to leave with the kids and return to Ireland without Molly.
Before we get into the rest of the episode, we have a quick word from our sponsor, Storyworth. I love when I'm chatting with my dad and I find out some memories from his childhood, how I used to be at the front rows of all these concerts growing up, and I'm just like, wow, it's so crazy to think my dad was my age at one time, living life, going crazy, doing all the fun things. You just don't always think of your parents' life before they had you. I really want to make Father's Day special for my dad this year, and that's why I'm going to get him a unique, heartfelt gift that will truly make him feel loved, and I'll get to hear even more stories about my dad, and it's called Storyworth Memoirs.
How it works is each week, Storyworth emails your loved one a memory-provoking question that you get to help pick. Questions like, did you ever get in trouble at school? Or how did you decide how many children to have? Sometimes I feel like my dad doesn't like talking about himself so much. So I feel like this is such a great way to learn more about him. He can respond to the emails and answer the questions when he has time, maybe. And even I feel like it's nice for anyone to reflect upon their memories. And, he might remember some things that he thought he'd forgotten and that he has never told us before. So I think it's just such a great idea. They can either write a story or record it over the phone for Storyworth to transcribe. There's no complicated apps required. After your loved one has answered their questions for a year, Storyworth will compile all their stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book, and you'll be able to share it for generations to come. I know my kids love looking through old photo albums, and they would absolutely love something like this. So give the dads in your life a unique, heartfelt gift you'll all cherish for years, Storyworth. Right now, save $10 during their Father's Day sale when you go to storyworth.com/TCS. That's storyworth.com/TCS to save $10 on your order. On the 2nd of August 2015 at 3 a.m., Molly's father Thomas called 911. He told dispatchers that Jason had been badly injured. He said that he had intervened during a fight between Molly and Jason and that he may have killed his son-in-law. So the full 911 call is available. We'll put in a clip here. The full call is around 15 minutes, I believe. We've got it linked on the blog if you want to listen to the main parts. We've picked out kind of the main things just to recap in case you have trouble hearing it or you just want it to be a little bit clearer. But basically, Tom calls and says, my son-in-law got in a fight with my daughter. I intervened and he's in bad shape. We need help. And the dispatcher says, okay,
He's
what do
very
you
chill.
mean? Yeah, it's very chill, very calm, very not like panicked like other 911
No
calls that
panic
I've
at
heard.
all.
No. So the dispatcher says, okay, he's in bad shape. What do you mean he's hurt? And Tom says, he's bleeding all over. I may have killed him. He's covered in blood. So then the dispatcher's trying to direct them to do CPR, and Molly cries and she says, I'm certified. I just can't think. So then it goes on and the dispatcher's trying to get them to calm down and do CPR. Molly also told police that apparently when this argument happened, Jason was screaming, I'm going to kill you. According to the police incident report, the incident was initially recorded as an assault by 911. The report was written by a deputy, and it says that at 3:04 a.m. on August 2nd, the deputy advised that he was en route. It says, at the time, the Davidson County 911 Centre advised that the complainant in the call had stated that he had been in an argument with his son-in-law and that he had struck him with a baseball bat. When police arrived, Molly was covered in blood. Tom and Molly were both questioned by police. Tom said that he'd been spending the night with the family and he'd been awakened by fighting upstairs. He grabbed an aluminium baseball bat that he had purchased as a gift for the kids and he'd run up the stairs. Tom explained to police that Jason had apparently grabbed Molly by the throat. He said, he sees me coming and he goes around her throat like this, and he demonstrated a chokehold. And I said, let her go. He turned and he said, I said to him, let her go. It says he turned and said, let her go, as in basically get away from Molly. I'm going to kill her. So Tom said, I hit him with the baseball bat. Tom goes on to say, he reaches out and he grabs the bat and he's stronger than I am. He pushes me down and I was scrambling on the floor. My glasses fall off. Now I'm thinking he's going to kill me. Molly said he tried to hit my dad, I think, but he may have missed and I hit him on the head. So Molly hit Jason with a paving stone that was randomly on her nightstand. They have lots of images of this stone in the Netflix documentary. There's also crime scene photos online, which I've put on the blog if you want to see it. But basically, it's a very big stone. It's not like a pebble. It's like an actual big paving stone that you'd make a pathway or something with.
Or like
it's
a
big stone.
patio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this was on her nightstand. And they do ask Molly about this. Like the investigator says, you have a brick on your nightstand. What was that for? And Molly says, the kids and I were going to paint these bricks and flowers around the mailbox. So
But still, why is it on your nightstand?
Yeah, yeah. Tom also said in terms of hitting Jason, he said, I get the bat back. I can't tell you how many times I hit him. I can't tell you. I mean, it was a battle. So like I already have so many questions, but we'll go through them at the end. But this is what they're telling the police.
Yeah. I was gonna say, this is where you like lose the self-defense argument for me. Especially, like, I know you still will get into it, but when you see the photos and everything, there's blood everywhere. Yeah. There's like bat marks in the wall.
The stone is covered in blood.
Let me knock him out. Yeah. It wasn't just like, let me knock him out. Let me get him away from her. It was like, he got the shit beat out of him.
And I've never actually, like, I know that Tom says that Jason was bigger and stronger than him, but I'm like, what was Tom fighting with? You've got a baseball bat and you are beating him ruthlessly. What was he fighting back with? He didn't have a gun. He didn't have a knife. He didn't have anything.
And it was clear at points like he was on the ground and they were hitting him.
Yeah, they do, in the documentary, they do speak about how brutally, we'll get into it a little bit more, but they do speak about how brutally Jason was murdered and that like part of his skull fell out. It's like horrible. It's not like he was just hit once over the head and kind of disarmed and then dropped just to the ground. This was a merciless beating.
Yeah.
So after Molly and her father were initially released from questioning, Molly spent $5,500 on having the home industrially cleaned to remove all traces of blood, which I'm not surprised. I actually probably would have thought it would have cost more based on the amount of blood in those photos, but she did that very quickly. She also attempted to have Jason's body cremated before his family could arrive from Ireland. The North Carolina Police and Medical Examiner's Office thankfully prevented her from doing this. Molly only consented to giving Jason's family access to his body when they agreed to pay all costs for the funeral and for repatriation of his body to Ireland. So I feel like this is just showing you kind of her ruthlessness and her control over the situation. She obviously wanted him cremated, I am assuming, so no further investigation could be done, just to kind of tidy up all the loose ends.
Yeah.
So 4 days after their father died, the children were interviewed by a social worker. Sarah told the social worker that her dad did have anger and management issues, and Jack said that he had seen Jason physically hurt Molly on previous occasions. So you can see clips of the kids' interviews in the Netflix special. The expert does say that they use vocabulary that is not typical of children of their age. Their vocabulary is quite advanced. Yeah, it wasn't. So 9 months after they were questioned, Jack renounced what he had said and basically said that Molly had coached him on what to say, which I absolutely agree with. That is probably what happened.
Yeah, I've heard the exact words. They're saying, I'll try to find the clips, but they were just like using words like physical, domestic violence, like something along those terms.
I am paraphrasing too, but I remember because they have the subtitles down the bottom, so it was something along the lines of, can't even speak, along the lines of, my dad physically assaulted my mother. And
yeah, that's what it was.
Kids, most kids would be like, my dad hit my mother or, pushed her or whatever. Then when I heard that, I'm like, it's like the kids were almost reading from a script.
Yeah, and there was just like a lot of, it seemed like they were hitting points.
Yeah. Yeah. So she would have said, this is what you need to say. You need to tell them that he physically abused me, he verbally abused me, whatever the points were. So they had that drilled into them. So they would have recalled that and just kind of recited what she told them to say.
Yeah.
So according to The Independent, Molly arranged for a memorial service for Jason in North Carolina, but she hired security to ensure that none of his Irish family were able to attend. Very ruthless. So a few days after Jason died, Molly filed for custody of Jack and Sarah. Jack was 10 at that point. Sarah was 8. So that's what when we were just talking about the vocabulary, this is an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, so obviously they were old enough to kind of remember what they'd been told to say, but they were still little kids.
Yeah.
Jason had created a will in 2007 and he'd named his sister Tracy and her husband as guardians of the kids. He never altered the will after he married Molly, and as we mentioned, he never let her adopt them. And now I just think, gosh, they should be so thankful for that after all of this. Imagine if she had have been the legal mother of those children, it would have been a whole different story. But thankfully, Tracy and Jason's family challenged the custody filing, and on 20th of August that year, custody was formally awarded to Tracy and she took Jack and Sarah back to Ireland. After the children left the US, Molly would continually post photos of them on Facebook and would beg them to get in touch with her. They do show all the screenshots in the Netflix documentary where she basically is like, please contact me. I love you so much. You know, she's begging to these children publicly via social media.
It's, like, so bizarre. They show all the posts in the documentary, and I was like, "This is so unhinged and weird." Like, if you really cared about the kids, would you be doing this? Like, or you fighting more privately? Like, it seemed like such a spectacle.
Yeah, I agree. She was making it just like, look at me, look at poor me being held for
Yeah,
these
like a
children.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jason's family actually sent her a cease and desist letter and told Molly to stop posting photos of the kids on social media. During the investigation, it was discovered that Jason had been planning to return with the children to Ireland permanently on the 21st of August 2015, so not long at all after he was murdered. He had made preparations to transfer $60,000 to his Irish bank account in preparation. It was also discovered that Molly had removed large amounts of money from joint accounts after Jason died. On 5th of January 2016, Molly and Thomas were charged with second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter in relation to Jason's death after unsealed indictments revealed that a grand jury had determined that sufficient probable cause had been established. That's a pretty quick turnaround too, for this to happen in August and then by January they're being charged. I feel like that is a pretty quick turnaround based on some other cases that we've seen.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because the kids were involved and, like, how crazy she was being about it.
And also, there was a shit ton of evidence. Like, it's not like...
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So I guess that played a part. The court ordered both of them to turn in their passports, and they also said that they were not to attempt to contact Jason's children back in Ireland. They were released on a bail bond of $200,000, and they awaited their trial. The first trial began on the 17th of January 2017. Both Molly and Thomas pled not guilty to the second-degree murder charge, and they both said that they acted in self-defense. During the trial, we learned that Jason's injuries were so severe, the medical examiner was unable to determine how many times he had been struck with the baseball bat and with the paving stone. When photos of Jason's injuries were shown to the jury, one of them became physically ill and had to leave the room. So that gives you an idea of the brutality and how horrific the scene was.
Mm-hmm.
It was also revealed that Jason had trazodone in his system. Is that how you say it? Trazodone?
Yeah.
Okay. It was also revealed that Jason had trazodone in his system. He had never been prescribed that drug, but Molly had been issued with a prescription for it 3 days before his death. So Jason was found naked and covered in blood. The DA testified that neither Molly or Tom had signs of injuries or any trauma on their body. Obviously, Molly was covered in blood, but she had no actual injuries.
I will say, just to interject, I used to take trazodone for sleeping, and the few times I took it, like when you're new to taking it, it makes you so drowsy and so tired. So if it was something that he'd never even taken before, I could imagine that he would have been pretty
knocked out,
tired, drowsy, sedated from it.
So Corporal Clayton Dagenhart, who was the first officer to arrive at the house, spoke during the trial, and he told the jury how blood was spattered on the walls, floor, bed, hallway, and bedroom. Paramedics who arrived on the scene quickly also testified. Amanda Hackworth, the paramedic, said that she noticed that Jason's skin felt remarkably cool. She said his lack of body temperature was, quote, alarming, and that she spoke with officers at the scene about how long Tom and Molly had waited before calling 911. So obviously, if they're calling 911 and they didn't say he'd been dead for a long time, they pretended to do CPR or attempted to do CPR, which you wouldn't do on someone who is very clearly deceased, you would think.
Yeah.
She was told by officers that Molly and her father claimed to have phoned for help as soon as Jason was injured, which doesn't seem to gel with the story. Crime scene examiner Lieutenant Frank Young spoke to the court and said that when he arrived at the house, he was told that Molly said Jason had strangled her, and he photographed Molly to record any injuries. He couldn't find any evidence of any injuries. He said he had to tell Molly to stop rubbing and tugging at her neck while he took the photos. Another police officer said that while Molly was sitting in the police car, she continually rubbed her neck in a scrubbing motion. He said that she was making crying noises, but he didn't see any actual tears. Thomas took the stand in his own defense, I guess being an FBI agent. He thought he was pretty well versed in that. Yeah, true. He ran through his version of events that night. He said that he did dislike Jason and he advised Molly to seek a divorce because Jason didn't measure up to what his expectation of her husband should be.
Just side note,
Molly
the dad seems pretty unlikable in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like
I agree.
very superior, better than you, condescending, I know it all type of personality.
I agree. So Molly exercised her right to silence. She declined to speak in court. The DA alleged that her motives for killing Jason included inheriting the house and its contents, as well as a $600,000 life insurance policy. And the DA also said that Molly believed that she would get custody of the kids. On 9th of August 2017, after deliberating for less than 4 hours, Thomas and Molly were unanimously found guilty of the second-degree murder of Jason. Both were sentenced to a minimum of 20 years and a maximum of 25 years in prison, as per the prosecution's recommendation. Jack, who was 13 by that point, he wrote a victim. I'll just start that sentence again. Jack, who was then 13, wrote a victim impact statement that was read out to the court by the DA on his behalf. Jack said that losing his father just 9 years after the death of his mum was incredibly difficult, and he said that his dad was always there for him as a child but would now never see him grow up. Jack also addressed Molly directly. He said that she was not a part of their family and that she would never be again. Jack said that she would forever be remembered as a murderer who killed her husband and his father for no reason, and Molly was said to have wailed uncontrollably as the statement was read out. Many of the jury were also reportedly reduced to tears. So I feel like the story probably should have ended there. 20 years doesn't even really seem like enough, but I guess at least it's something, and that is, for me, where the story should have ended. But on the 12th of March 2021, the North Carolina Supreme Court ruled that Molly and Thomas were due a new trial. This happened after the appeals court quashed their convictions on the grounds that statements made by Jason's children were wrongly excluded from being used by defense lawyers during their original trial in 2017. So I'm assuming they were kind of things along the lines of Molly was a good mother, Jason was abusive, those type of things. That they were the grounds on which they were granted this new trial. In response to this, Jack and Sarah expressed willingness to testify against Tom and Molly in the event that their previous statements would be relied on by the defense legal teams. On the 30th of October 2023, Molly and Thomas both took plea bargains to charges of Class D manslaughter in return for the district attorney agreeing to drop the murder charges against them, which is wild, but that's what happened. In November 2023, Molly pled no contest to a reduced charge of voluntary manslaughter, while Thomas pled guilty to the same charge. And on the 9th of November 2023, they were both sentenced to between 51 and 74 months in prison. Due to time already served, it was expected that both defendants would only serve an additional 7 months in prison before being eligible for release. At their resentencing, Jack and Sarah, who were then 19 and 17, were in court to deliver their victim impact statements in person. Sarah described how she had endured years of therapy due to the fact her statements as a young child had been twisted and then used to help Molly and Thomas escape proper punishment. Sarah said that Molly had devastated their whole family. Before we get into the episode, we've got a quick word from our sponsor. IQ Mix is a zero sugar drink mix from IQ Bar that hydrates, boosts your mood, and promotes mental clarity. I love IQ Mix. I have one at least every single day. Sometimes I have multiple ones. IQ Mix has 3 times the electrolytes of other sports drinks and is packed with electrolytes and nutrients shown to support sustained cognitive and physical performance. They have some delicious flavors such as passion fruit, pina colada, lemon lime, peach mango, pink lemonade, and raspberry lemonade. I've been absolutely loving the raspberry lemonade this week. It's also so handy that IQ Mix is free from gluten, sugar, soy, and GMOs. It's even certified vegan and kosher.
With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are starting their days on the right foot with IQ bars, brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. I brought some of my IQ mixes and IQ bars into work with me to share them with my coworkers, and they're obsessed with them. They're always asking me if I have more. They love that the IQ mix is loaded with like healthy ingredients like magnesium and lion's mane, and that it gives them all day energy and mental clarity. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus get free shipping. So you're 20% off, text crime to 64,000, text crime to 64,000. That's crime to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Sarah also said that Molly had shown no remorse for killing Jason. Sarah said that Molly had removed her wedding ring almost immediately after Jason had died, and she told Sarah to stop crying and get over it days after his death. This is an 8-year-old girl. She's saying, stop crying about your dad dying and get over it. Jack asked that the judge not be fooled by Molly and said that she was a monster who had abused him and weaponized his earlier statements in an effort to get away with killing Jason. As the children read their statements, Molly sobbed loudly and eventually laid her face down on the table in front of her. Very dramatic, very poor me.
She loves the dramatics.
Yeah, such a victim. 6th of June 2024, so almost a year ago, Molly and Thomas were released from prison after completing their sentences for voluntary manslaughter. Both were subjected to 1 year of post-release supervision, which was reported to be served in Tennessee, which is their home state. So I still think it's wild. They are both out of prison. They
It's crazy.
served a little amount of time. The Netflix documentary does go into discussion, I guess, back and forth about how Jason was abusive and was it really self-defense. I wrote down some discussion points that we didn't so much cover in the episode because it is literally discussion. But one part of the documentary includes some clips from recording devices that Molly had set up in an effort to prove that Jason was abusive. They did play one where they kind of have a stern words. I wouldn't even really call it an argument, but like Jason is being a bit of a dick to her, but it's about feeding the kids and she's saying, I'm trying to feed the kids. And like, it's basically an argument about food.
With the family.
Are you finished with your dinner, hon?
I'm talking to you.
No.
Is this how you treat? This is what you just ignore me? I said I'd like to have dinner with my family. I'm talking to you. I shouldn't have to say over and over. I shouldn't have to say, Molly.
Can you guys get out the stuff for pancakes?
No, see, here you go again. I'm talking to you and you're still going on talking about something else.
So if she had all these recording devices set up, some of which the clips were played in the series, where is the evidence of him being so abusive on that night that they had to kill him in self-defense? I just, like, so many people have commented that and said, where is it? If she set it up, I feel like she was trying to manipulate him and trying to catch him being a real asshole in some of the clips. But if that's all she's got, that's pretty telling, I think.
Yeah, I think her just setting up the recording devices all over the house was like a red flag. Number one, they tried to say it was because she wanted to be able to prove like that she should have the kids and that she was a good mother to them and that they were voice activated. But like you just said, if they're voice activated, this is all we have is like him, being a dick. But any couple has arguments when taken out of context that one person or both people are going to sound like assholes at some point.
Yeah.
But in one of the people on the show, I don't remember who it was, pointed out that Molly knew these recordings were happening. She knew the recordings. I mean, the devices were around the house and kind of, obviously would play the victim down and play up her role. Yeah.
Like even in the clip, I'm paraphrasing because I didn't memorize it, but she's like, I'm just trying to feed the kids soup. Like she, I have no doubt that the recordings that she didn't share, she was probably more volatile and more aggressive. She just picked one where he seemed a bit pissed off about the situation.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, like, sure, maybe he was a dick sometimes. Maybe he was, like, kind of abusive. Who's to say? I mean, the kids are saying that they don't remember anything like that ever. And, I hate having to defend a man and not believe a woman who says she's a victim.
Yeah.
But there's just... I forgot what I was saying. There's just...
I just feel like there's not actually any concrete evidence that he was so abusive to her that he needed to die. Like, I understand self-defense is sometimes like a valid reason, like someone is scared for their life. I just don't feel like there is enough evidence to prove that is what actually happened that night.
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to say. I agree because, like we were saying before, this wasn't just like the dad came up and like hit him in the head and knocked him out. It was like he could have been knocked out already on the ground and he kept getting hit with this bat and this brick. Like it wasn't self-defense at a certain point. And they said it, even in the documentary, at the point where Jason can no longer defend himself and is like down on the ground, that's when it turns into murder because
Yeah.
you're no longer defending yourself from him.
He's already disabled and disarmed, even though it doesn't seem like he had a weapon anyway. Like
Yeah,
and I understand, like, for example, if someone breaks into your house and you shoot them once, that's self-defense and they have a gun as well. But this was absolute overkill. They didn't
mhm.
need to be as brutal as they did for a self-defense reason.
Yeah, it was crazy. There's blood everywhere. Like,
Yeah. So we did ask on Instagram, we did a poll, and obviously Instagram gives us limited options for the poll, but we asked, was Jason's murder truly self-defense, planned and premeditated, or other? So we had to kind of encompass some other things in other. 74% of people said they thought it was planned and premeditated. 9% said they thought it was truly self-defense. 18% were other. I guess 18% the other might be it wasn't so much premeditated, but maybe like, I just wonder, why was Tom there if he didn't know that this was going to happen? That just seems like a random thing for him to be there. But my theory on what happened that night is they had this fight after the party where Molly commented on his weight. They went home. She drugged him with the trazodone, or they went home, and I think he told her that he wanted a divorce and he was going to take the kids back to Ireland. And I think she didn't like that. Maybe she called Tom. She drugged him with the trazodone, and then when he was asleep or drowsy, I feel like they attacked him.
yeah, definitely I agree something like that happened. I feel like if you go back to what Keith was saying, how she felt like being engaged would, fix everything and make her happy. And then she thought moving to Europe would fix everything and make her happy. I feel like then she thought, being a mom and having these kids would be the next thing to like fix her mental health issues and like make her happy. And maybe the kids really did make her happy, but I feel like she so desperately just wanted the kids and to be a mom that when he said he was taking them, like she panicked because she thought that was like her fix. Like this whole thing was the cure to her bipolar, her manic depression. And I think that's why she was like so desperate to keep them and latch on to the kids because that was her new identity as being a mom.
Yeah. And
Um,
obviously, like, I like, if it's not clear, I don't really like Molly. I don't believe her story in this, but I do wonder why she didn't have her own children. I know she had a miscarriage, so maybe it was a fertility thing. Like, she just seemed fixated, though, on Jason's children. There may have been a reason why they couldn't have their own children. Maybe he said he didn't want more children. I don't know. I've never really kind of seen that addressed anywhere, but she was really fixated on taking his biological children and making them her own for whatever
and I feel like
reason.
he started to pick up on that also because even in the clips she did share, he was like, stop sending the kids away, stop like telling the kids what to do, like I want to have dinner with my kids. It was hard to tell what the argument was really about, but it did seem like she was almost trying to turn the kids against him, and that's what he was getting frustrated with, like that she was removing them from him. But like I said, there's no context to the argument really, so it was hard to say what was going on, but that's what I'd imagine was happening.
I would agree. So the other discussion point that I just wanted to mention quickly, because I know that if we don't, someone else is going to be like, why didn't you talk about this? There's quite a lot of focus in the show about the idea that Jason actually killed his first wife, Margaret, and that she didn't die from an asthma attack. So I feel like that was kind of a seed probably planted by Molly because she obviously wanted him to seem abusive. He's killed his first wife. This is why she had to kill him, because he was abusive towards her. Some experts were interviewed during the documentary and they talk about how Mags' symptoms could have been explained as happening after strangulation. So obviously it was so that she died from an asthma attack. I guess if you strangle someone, their windpipe and all that are going to become constricted. Maybe that could mimic an asthma attack. They do speak like about how they got these separate experts to look at her autopsy, and some of them are like, absolutely no way she died from an asthma attack. I feel like that is probably ridiculous. Mags' sister and Jason's children both strongly dispute that he killed Mags. I feel like I don't know.
It's easy to see that she had a history of asthma or not. And the whole family like came out against that. Even her family was like, absolutely not. Like she died from an asthma attack.
I feel like that was just an idea that probably Molly came up with to kind of plant the seed of doubt. Yeah, one of them, as like this, he has a history of being abusive. He probably killed his first wife. They do focus a lot on that in the episode. I personally think it's probably ridiculous, and she did die from asthma.
Another thing I thought was interesting that they said in the documentary, and it kind of goes up to what you were saying of like, why did the dad end up there, is how they mentioned that the grandma, who also lived like downstairs or wherever it was, how in her statement she wrote that she heard a ruckus, she heard Molly scream, and that Tom said he was going to go check out, and she just went back to sleep.
Yeah.
What mother's going back to sleep?
When
You
someone's
hear your daughter
screaming in the
screaming?
house. Yeah.
Your daughter's screaming, and then, there's this beat down, which you have to hear, I'm assuming, and she's just like, "Oh, I just went back to bed."
Yeah.
Like, you hear a child screaming and you're not gonna stay awake at least?
So we did ask on Instagram too what people's thoughts were. I thought that I may be in the minority after watching this documentary of still thinking that Molly was guilty and that their sentences were ridiculous. They should still be in jail. But I feel like the majority of people do agree with that. Someone says, planned attack, it's hard to watch, lost for words kind of. Someone wrote, the doc makes you believe for a hot minute it was self-defense, but I do think it was murder. Someone else said she planned this. She and her dad are guilty. There are a few people who say, watched it the other day, I'm really conflicted, have no idea what's the truth. But I feel like the majority of people do agree that Molly is very mentally unwell, and this was probably planned, to some extent. Like, even if she just planned it that day, like, I feel like she absolutely meant to kill him. It was not self-defense.
Yeah, I think she's plotting something, even if it was somehow taking the kids away. Like, maybe that was her goal, and, like, the goal wasn't always to murder him, but she wanted to get the kids somehow, and then it just kinda ended up in that. But I do think, like, her goal was always to take the kids away.
Yeah. Well, this is what someone wrote, and this goes along with what you're saying. It says, I don't think she planned to kill him, but planned for the dad to witness the abuse so that she could take the children, which is an interesting thought. I
Yeah.
could see that. But then I'll just read out a few more before I kind of finalize my thoughts. Someone wrote, she went across the world to seek that guy out. And even if you believed he was attacking her, they completely pummeled him with a baseball bat. And even with the hidden microphones across the house, the worst she could record was him complaining about dinner
Exactly.
one time, which is what we've said.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what I was going to say then in my summary.
It just also sucks because, like I kind of said before, women like this piss me off even more because women are already so often not believed.
Yeah.
Then you get people like her that add credibility to the shitty, like, argument of like, oh, well, what'd she do to deserve it? Or like, oh, she lied. Like, whenever there's a story of a woman in abuse, it's like, why didn't she leave? Why didn't she do this? Maybe she set him up. Maybe she did this. And then you hear stories like this, and it's like just adding fuel to that fire of like, women are liars, don't believe women. When most of the time, they're not. Most of the time, these stories of like domestic violence and stuff are true and even underreported because women are too scared to talk about them or too ashamed to talk about them. So just stories like this do so much damage in so many ways. So it's just really frustrating.
I remembered what I wanted to say. One thing I did find interesting too is that when the police and paramedics arrived, Jason was naked and bloody and all that. So I'm like, I feel like this is a weird scenario. Would you really try and abuse and fight with your wife while you were naked, while her family or her father were
No.
downstairs? Like, I feel like he probably maybe was sleeping naked.
Was in bed.
Yeah. So, and this was just an attack where she pretended that he was abusing her at the time. Like, I think he was drowsy and either knocked out and she just set upon him. She probably screamed to set it up. Like, but maybe if they were fully dressed and there had been some documented fight, but why would he be naked and trying to abuse his wife and kill his wife so badly?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It
Like,
sounds dumb, but it is a good point.
like, it's just, I just feel like that is an unlikely scenario. Obviously, it could happen. Don't get me wrong. Maybe he got out of bed and they had a fight. I know there are scenarios where it could have happened, but I just feel like it doesn't seem to fit with the probable or the story that Molly was giving.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I feel like some people are probably going to be angry about our thoughts on this. Like, they'll be like, I've read out some of the comments. Some people are like, my dad would do the same if he found my husband trying to kill me. So I know there are some people who are going to be on her side, but I just feel like with the evidence or the information that we've given today about her mental illness, her manipulation of the children, trying to get custody of the children, I just feel like she had all the motive in the world. He could have literally just taken off with the kids. She had no right to them, and that's what I think scared her, and that's why she tried to act.
Yeah, because she always made up the point how, like, he wouldn't let her adopt the kids legally.
Yeah.
Because I think
And
he
even
knew she was
yeah.
trying to take them.
And even the parts about her lying about knowing Mags and about being pregnant with Sarah, that is super creepy and very inappropriate. Like, it seems like
Yeah.
she was trying to create this perfect idealistic life, and then he was
It
like,
is very,
"No."
like, single white female in a
Yeah, it
way.
is. It's very yeah, it's just yucky.
Yeah, like, she
So
just wanted to take over her life.
and I feel like too, a lot of it, like it seems like it was probably a control thing. She essentially had no control over what he did. He had the money; he could transfer the money back to his Irish account. He could take the children tomorrow and be gone. She had no right to them. So I feel like for her, this was her attempt to control the situation with recording devices, all that type of stuff. She was just out of control, and she tried to regain control and failed.
Yeah, I agree. And if people are mad about our opinion on this case, like, I like I've been saying, I hate not agreeing with the woman. So,
Yeah.
I definitely have thought about this a lot and considered it. And like I said, maybe he was a dick sometimes. I just don't think that this murder happened as they say it did.
No. And I also don't think, I think the main part of it for me is I don't think the sentence that they ended up receiving fits the crime. Like,
No. Like, they're
I don't know.
out. They're just free.
Yeah.
They're doing Netflix documentaries.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's
And
weird.
like, there's been a lot of people question too, should they have even been in the documentary? Like, why?
It's weird.
Yeah, like people, like I have read angry comments about that. I do think in order for it to show both sides of the story, they should have been in it probably, but I guess it just raises a whole other discussion about, you know, I don't know if they got paid. I don't know how it works, but
Yeah.
should they have been allowed essentially to present their side of the story when they have already been given 2 trials? And I don't know. It's an interesting discussion.
One takeaway, final note is, and I think the Netflix documentary did good at focusing on this, and it was kind of like their main focus, I would say, in a way, was like how horrible this was for his kids, like what she put his kids through of essentially brainwashing them to
Yeah.
like talk against their dad. And then they had to live with that guilt forever, they said, of being like, we're the reason, like, we made our dad look bad after he was murdered, like, we supported her because of what she told us to say, and like just that she's dragged this on for years and years. They had to go back to court again when they were much older, and the daughter was like crying, like they were both crying as they were older, just how hard it was for them to have to relive this for years and years and years, essentially like be blamed and kind of be the center focus of this whole thing and feeling like they let their dad down. So it was really sad to see what like she put them through all these years.
Yeah. And they did focus, I know, like, I just feel like I could talk about this a lot, but they did focus too in the documentary. There was some like home movies and where the kids, she spoke about how the kids called her mum very early on. And like, essentially those kids only knew her as a mother. Like they were too young to probably remember Margaret. So she was the only mother they knew for like a large amount of years, which is sad for them because they should have been able to trust her and she manipulated them.
And especially, it was probably easy for her to essentially brainwash them and tell them what to say because she was probably like, they're going to take you away from me. They're going to send you to a different country with family that you probably don't really know very well.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they were
You'll have to-
terrified as little
and
kids.
even you can terrify kids easily, like saying things like, I don't know if she said this, I'm just speculating, but like along the lines of, well, you'll have to leave all your toys behind. You won't
Yeah.
have this in the island. You'll lose this, and all like things like that would be terrifying to children who don't know what's going on and have lost their father and all that. So I feel like she could have very easily manipulated them. It's like they were 18 and 19 at the time and were able to think for themselves. She was all they knew and she was all they had left. And she did the worst thing. They couldn't trust her.
Yeah, she just used them like as pawns.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad that they were able to eventually give their own like victim impact statements and say like their own version of events and kind of actually defend themselves and say their truth and
Yeah.
correct the past. I think that's it because we could just keep talking and talking and talking, but I think we've hit all the like main points and topics. So everything for this episode will be on the blog at truecrimesocietyblog.com. If you want to watch the documentary, it's called A Deadly American Marriage, maybe,
Yeah, it is. A Deadly American Marriage.
is what it's called on Netflix. It's worth watching. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's worth watching just for seeing what the kids have to say, really, and for being disgusted at Molly
Yeah.
and her dad just chatting away.
Yeah.
So check that out too. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, True Crime Society. We're always posting the latest news and updates and everything on our stories there. If you want to see what we're up to, my Instagram, StephSum_, Olivia's TCS Olivia. And check us out on Patreon. We do all the episodes ad-free. We do weekly bonus episodes as well. We just recorded one on the latest Moscow Brian Koberger updates in the Dateline episode, and that has brought a lot of drama and information. So if you want to hear about that, check us out on Patreon. Plus, we have some fun chats on there. Like, we talk about books and anything. We send pictures of our pets, just whatever. And all the usual stuff. Leave us some nice Spotify comments. Maybe you could be the next listener of the week. A very prestigious title.
One thing I thought that we could do, which I haven't told you about this, but I was thinking maybe whoever listens to the end, maybe they deserve a little treat. And we could, so I was thinking if we know, we could talk about what we're going to discuss next week, maybe. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so just like a little teaser in case you want something to look forward to. But I think for Patreon next week, there was a family in Nebraska where the dad murdered the wife and the two sons, and they'd been very public about his mental health struggles. They had a Facebook page regarding his mental health. So there's a lot of documented information online about the lead up to this murder-suicide. So we've had a few people suggest that one. And for the main episode, someone asked if we could do another Vacation Nightmares episode. So we are looking to do the murder of Grace Mullane. And she was a British backpacker tourist who was murdered in New Zealand by a guy she met off Tinder. So we will likely do those next week unless there's some big breaking case that we need to cover in the meantime.
Yes, so that's the plan. And just share the podcast to your Instagram stories. Let us know what you're doing while you're listening to the podcast. We love to reshare them and seeing what you guys are up to. And that's it. Share, review, subscribe, all the usual things. Big help to us. And that's that. So thank you guys for listening. Stay safe out there. Peace out.